On and on and on it goes. Let's just find the button to switch that off. Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison. It is the Monday Guitar Show. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and chat about the guitar. And today we are continuing our discussion on practice. Now, over the last few weeks, last couple of weeks, let's say, we have been discussing how to make practice something that is part of your life, and also how to make practice effective, how to make it something that you'll stick with, all that good stuff. Today, we are talking about what you should actually do during those practice sessions. And this is more of a big picture kind of thing. It's a way of making sure that your practice counts. Now, what do we mean by count? Well, count is that your practice is actually doing something good for you, right? It's doing something where it has, I beg your pardon, cough is back in full force. It's doing something that has a palpable, tangible benefit to you. Let's say there's something where you can come away from it and go, yep, I've done myself some good there. We kind of all know what I'm talking about here, right? It's a bit like exercise. We keep drawing parallels to exercise, but it's a little like exercise in the question of, well, what makes exercise count? Well, if it depends. Basically, it depends, right? But we all know the difference between exercise that counts and exercise that doesn't count. If you decide that you're about to embark on a new fitness program, and your fitness program involves doing plectrum curls for sets of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, so tired. Better order a large Domino's. We all know that as far as exercise goes, apart from some very limited cases, doesn't really count. However, if you go out and do something, it's reasonably challenging, you know, it's not crushing, but it's reasonably difficult, you had to put a bit of effort in, and you come away and you go, whoo, I'm quite tired now, definitely counts. We're going to be talking about how you can apply similar concepts to your practice and making sure that your practice counts, because this is something that a lot of folks have some anxiety over. It's like, okay, I'm going to practice. I've got a limited amount of time to practice. I really want to make this count. What should I do? What should I be playing? How do I make it count? And then you end up just going, and panicking and then just not practicing, right? Sound familiar? We've all been there. Now, before we do that, I want to say some quick hellos. If you're new here, welcome on board. We're doing the thing that we do every Monday. We hang out, we talk about the guitar. Our intentions, our goals are to make you, dear viewer, that is you, right down the camera, talking to you, a better guitar player, even if only slightly, than you were when you arrived with us. So a better guitar player when you leave than you were when you arrived. That's going to make me nice and happy. Now, we're going to say some hellos before we get too much further, but before we do that, I want to tell you about the little changeroo of amps behind me. You probably can't see them because they're looking quite dark today, but I've been on a bit of a, let's call it a plexi quest, right? So, man, it's been doing my nut, right? I'm just going to say that, right? It's been doing my head in because I've been searching for a really great plexi, but also one that isn't super expensive or super huge. Now, you may be looking around and going, but Nick, you've got all those Victory amps and they sound really great. I think they sound really great, but I would say that, Victory artist. Nail my colours to the mast, all that sort of deal. But the plexi thing, it kind of eludes me. Now, what I do have is over this side, I have a pair of Marshall Studio combos. I've got a Studio Vintage combo down here and a Studio JTM combo down here. And playing back and forward on these guys has led me to the conclusion that what I want is some kind of super lead or some kind of JMP. Basically, rather than some kind of JTM. Now, the JTM sound is a beautiful thing, and I'll probably continue using this Studio JTM for that sound. But what I want is that kind of Jimmy Page kind of plexi. We'll call it that, right? That's what I mean by plexi. Plexi means so many things to so many people. That's kind of what I'm talking about here, right? That is the sound. Now, the Studio JMP, it sounds good, right? It's a good sounding wee amp. If I just play it for you real quick, this is the Studio Vintage. right? Hopefully that sounds pretty good to you guys. It does sound good, but there's something I'm after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a few, and I'm going to ask you guys in the comments. We'll say some hellos in a second, right? But I'm going to ask you guys in the comments which one of these you enjoy the most, right? So here are a few examples. This is, I'm going to go to these cameras so you guys can see, right? So we've got our amp switcher down here. This is an N audio amp switcher, the best amp switcher, I think, right? I don't know why I sounded like Jim from Friday Night Dinner when I said that, but that's the best one in my opinion, right? So here is the Studio JTM. That sounds pretty cool. Lurking over my shoulder, autofocus, behave yourself. Lurking over my shoulder, I've got a Victory Sheriff 44. Check this out. Sounds pretty cool. What else do we have? Well, I also have, lurking over this shoulder, a modern Victory Sheriff 25, which is not the old style one, it's the modern style one. Sounds like this. I think I need somebody to tell me. that they all sound the same. But you can see where I'm going at with this one. Now, as if this wasn't enough, I also have a PRS HDRX 20 arriving tomorrow. So we're on PlexiQuest. We were talking about quests. It's got in my head. I'm on PlexiQuest. Let me know which one of those you preferred, by the way. Just as a quick reminder, here is the Marshall. Here is the old Victory Sheriff. Here is the new Victory Sheriff. Slightly brighter, the old Victory Sheriff slightly darker, the Plexi somewhere in the middle, it's got a bit more chime. So much to consider. Anyway, that's PlexiQuest. This is not what we're here to talk about. Let's say some hellos, then we'll get stuck in. First one through the door is PJ. Lovely to have you. Marcine is in the house too. PJ's been on a luthier course. Excited to see what you've been making, my man. Right, very cool. The dark art of pickup winding is next. Ooh, right, okay. Now that is a rabbit hole. I've got a few friends who wind pickups, and you can really spend a lot of time going down that rabbit hole in particular, but I'd imagine it's probably worth it. Sounds very cool. Timothy Appling is in the house. Great to see you. Fog Cornish is here. Great tip last week with regards to down picking and holding the pick at the opposite angle. Right, it works, doesn't it, right? So this is in reference to a thing we talked about last week, which was down picking quest that I've been on, where we talked about this idea of the trailing edge picking for down picking. It's something I've been playing with. Guitar needs a good tune, but you get the gist, as opposed to leading edge picking, this being leading edge, this being trailing edge. I pick leading edge most of the time, but trailing edge is my new down picking technique of preference. It works though, doesn't it? It's a lot of fun. Cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. Who else do we have? Very quickly, we'll say some more hellos. Timothy Appling with a health update. Pleased about this. All is good health-wise. Been moving 3.5 hours from my last apartment to a new home. Wow, geez, man, that's a long way to go. America is massive. I always forget about this, but I'm glad you're doing well, man, right? I'm glad you could join us. Glad you're feeling well. Sacred Godslayer's here. Helmet Straps here. Response Audio's here. Kate Strange is in the house. Larry Warren's here. Kim, we were on the phone earlier on. I was complaining about Plexis to Kim as well, so don't feel like you're alone in this, folks. Citizen741 is here. Tone D. Farkas. Franz, Steve, Luke is in the house. Ooh, very cool. Playing on his Ibanez. We're playing through a Boss GM800 on a lead synth. Very interesting. Like a bit of that. Block 18's here. Kathmandu 1962 is here, rather. Mal Riley's playing the 1980 Les Paul Custom. Chef's Kiss. Mike Seedorf is here with a lovely compliment. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Johnny Bean is in the house with some fire emojis. We like a bit of that. My friend Craig's in, as he said he would be. Lovely to see you. He's saying Jimmy Page was a Supro. Jimmy Page was, in fact, a Supro. And he's telling me I can feck off with that last run. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Mike Seedorf's here. Sarah Godslow's in the house with his Jackson Dinky and neon pink. Colin O'Hare is in the house. We were chatting just the other day at a gig. I was singing, not playing, which was unusual. Not the singing part, that's not unusual, but not having a guitar was unusual. Unusual for me anyway. Sam Juni Music is in the house. Really enjoying the fretboard class. Oh, good, man. I'm pleased about that. My friend James in the house. Lovely to see you. My old friend Rob is in the house. Rob, great to have you on board. Dreams is here. Who else do we have? Very quickly, Tony McNally is here. Our friend Vyacheslav is tuning in from Russia. Great to have you on board. Helmet Strap is here. Felicia's tuning in. Chris Pritchett is here. Who else do we have? We've got some love for the Marshall. I think the Marshall is my favourite. Nick Harrison's here. Eduardo's here. Jada Bart's here. Sean, the postman, is tuning in. Lovely to have you, Sean. Great to see you. We're at the Fox this weekend, Sean, so I'll see you there. VCR this weekend. Yeah, on the Sunday, I think. Anyway, let's get into it. So I've talked enough about plexis. Man, I could talk more, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna we'll gloss over that, right? Let me know what your favorite was. If you have a favorite, or if you thought they all sounded the same, say to me, Nick, they all sound the same, and then I'll be forced to concede, because they did sound very similar. Certainly through the IR that I'm playing through right now. Anyway, on to the meat of today's session. I'm going to let a bit of air into my studio. It's getting quite warm with all these amps going. That is better. That's feeling nicer. So, ways to make your practice count. Let's quickly refresh our memory on what we mean by count. So, count, we can say, is making sure that our practice, when we sit down to practice, is working towards advancing our goals as a guitar player, right? I would probably argue that, first of all, not all practice has to count, right? Sometimes practice can just be sitting and playing and having fun, right? But then we have to ask ourselves the question, are we practicing or are we playing, right? And playing is important. There's nothing wrong with playing. Playing is very good. Nobody, when asked what they do with their free time says, I practice the guitar. We say we play the guitar, right? Because that's what we signed up to do. We didn't sign up to practice, we signed up to play. So, this in mind, let's first accept, and this is not one of the tips, let's first accept that practice does not always have to count, air quotes count. It can sometimes just be a bit of fun. But we want to talk about making it count. Let's say you have a limited amount of time and you really want to make sure every time you sit down and you play, something good comes of it. So, let's begin with tip number one. And tip number one is something we talked about last week. And I'm glad Nick Harrison is here, because Nick's going to be able to expand upon this. This is a term that I have coined that is based upon something Nick talks about quite a lot. He has a great Venn diagram on the subject. I've got to say, man loves a Venn diagram. But it's a great Venn diagram on the subject. Go check out the Creative Guitar Performance Workshop. Social media, definitely worth your time. Do it after this stream, though, because we're kind of busy right now. Anyway, tip number one is to service the three pillars of your guitar playing. What on earth does that mean, Nick? Well, let's get into it. So the pillars of your guitar playing are as follows. And these are the three things that, when brought together, summate basically the entirety of playing the guitar. And they are as follows. They are your physical technique, your knowledge and understanding of the instrument, and your vocabulary, repertoire, and musicianship, right? You can think about these, if you want to, in the terms that Steve Vai referred to them as, which are hands, head, and heart. Now, these are not perfect terms, but I really like them. I really like them because they basically, they hint towards these things that we're talking about here, right? Your hands being your physical technique on the instrument, your head being your understanding of the instrument, your understanding of music theory, your ability to visualize the instrument, and your heart being your musicianship, your voice, your sense of time, your sense of expression, your vocabulary. I would argue that to make practice really count, you should be servicing these three things, these three aspects of your guitar playing. And we're going to go into some ways that you can do this. But if you start with those, in mind, we can basically say if you've done something for all three of those categories, all three of those pillars of your guitar playing, you've kind of done something for basically everything. Now, is this, if you do something for all three of these, have you done an all-encompassing everything practice routine? No, not necessarily. But I think for you to practice every single element of guitar playing in a single session is a bit of a fool's errand, because there are so many things to do, you're never going to get through all of them. But if we move these big rocks, we can really go a long way towards making our practice count. Now, let's start by addressing those rocks and some ways that we might move those big rocks. Let's address those pillars, whatever it is you want to call them, right? Again, all credit where it's due. Lots of players have talked about this, but I'm not going to say I was introduced to this concept, but this is a concept that my friend Nick Jennison has shown me, I've stolen from, unrepentantly, and I'm a big fan of giving credit where it's due. But when I saw this, it also kind of made me think of all these other players who said this stuff, most notably the Steve Vai thing, right? The Steve Vai thing, huge deal, right? Hand, head, heart. Hands, head, heart. It's a very Steve way of putting it, but it's also a really nice, poetic, musical, artsy way of kind of thinking about it. So let's begin by looking at how we might service, or how we might work towards improving pillar number one, which is the hands. Without our physical technique, there is nothing that we are capable of playing on the guitar. If you ever want to prove this to yourself, if you ever want to prove how much your physical technique matters, there is a simple test that you can do. Now, when we refer to physical technique, we don't necessarily mean your capability to play absolutely bonkers, mind-bending shred licks, right? Not that this is necessarily going to be one of those, but this is only one manifestation of technique on the instrument. It's a very showy manifestation, but it's only one manifestation of technique, right? Technique is something that spans all the way across our guitar playing. If we don't have physical technique, we're not able to play anything. And I'm going to prove it to you now. We're going to take you, dear musician, with your understanding of the instrument, your theory knowledge, your fretboard knowledge, your musicianship, all that good stuff. We're going to keep that intact, but we are going to rob you of your physical technique by taking the guitar and turning it this way. Turn it the other way up. Oh, good heavens, this is going to be bad. Right now, is it possible for guitar to be played this way? Absolutely. Eric Gales exists. Right? And the sheer fact that Eric Gales is able to play the guitar this way up, with the strings this way up too, should prove to us that, yes, guitar can be played this way. Can I do it? Not a chance, right? So let's see what musical stuff I can come up with here. If you're just tuning in, bear with me, I promise I can play the guitar. Yak. Let's do a 2-5-1 lick. Horrible, terrible, awful, right? We don't want that. Now, the reason I demonstrate this is to show you the importance of your physical technique. The importance of physical technique is that it allows us to execute the ideas that we have in our head and the ideas that we have in our hearts. Steve Vai's heart definition here. It allows for the musicianship to manifest through the instrument, right? So our physical technique needs to be challenged, and it needs to be grown commensurately alongside our other fretboard knowledge and our other musicianship and all that sort of stuff, right? All this good stuff. We need to grow our technique too, because the technique is what allows us to put the rubber on the road. The way we do this is by finding things that are physically challenging for us to play. Now, this may take the form of things like new scale shapes or new combinations of fingers, but it may also take the form of things like timing, time issues, right? It may take the form of different physical ways of playing the instrument. There are lots of ways we can challenge ourselves. We're going to explore a few of those now, beginning with a drum loop. And we're going to begin with a very simple scale. This scale in question, I'm going to autofocus, so I'm going to manual focus this camera in a second because it's driving me kind of crazy. But what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? This camera, we're on clear image zoom right now for anybody who's a camera nerd. These are Sony cameras, and this is an older ZV-10. This main camera is a new ZV-10. This does not have the AI autofocus and clear image zoom. It only has the contrast based, which basically means it's like a friggin' Panasonic or something. Anyway, lame. So, drum loop. We're going to slow this down a little bit. Drum loops are fun with this, right? Here is an example of some physically challenging technique, right? Physically challenging technique. So, we're going to take the G major scale. I'm going to go to a slightly cleaner sound for this. I may go to one of my plexis. Who knows? Let's go to the Victory plexi. See how it sounds. See how it behaves. So, I'm kind of warming to it. I was a bit off it for a while, but I'm kind of warming to it. Anyway, I digress. Who, me? Digress. Who knew? Anyway, so we're going to take G major. G major being as follows. We have 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, option of 7, right? Hopefully everybody is able to play this with me. I'm sure you are. I'm sure it's not going to cause you too much of an issue. Let's play it from low to high, and let's examine some ways that we can challenge our technique. So we're going to play. Now this may represent a challenge to you already. Or it may represent something that is very simple and very well within your bounds. Well, what if we were to challenge our technique by doing things like playing in sequences? We talked about this before on our featured course that I'll talk about in a second, which is Sam Bell's guided practice routine, musical sequences. What if we played this in sequences of 4, where we play 1, 2, 3, 4, and then move to the next note. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This may challenge our physical coordination, certainly challenging this guitar's tuning integrity. I'm sure you're picking up the drill, right? But let's go again. What if instead of playing 4s, we played 5s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Woo! That can be very challenging, right? That is one way of challenging our physical technique, which is challenging coordination. But there are other ways we can challenge our physical technique. We could challenge our physical technique in terms of articulation. We could challenge our ability to play with dynamics, for example. We could challenge ourselves to accent certain notes or de-accent certain notes. We could say every time we get to a note of the chord, which is root, 3rd, and 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, we're going to accent it. Anytime we play something that's not in the triad, the root triad, we're not going to accent it. What might that look like? Well, it might look like this. This is just arbitrary. I'm making this up, right? This is just my particular thoughts on this right now. But first, you're going to have to excuse me. I'm going to have to manually focus this camera because that is unacceptable. There we go. Are we in focus? Yes, better. Don't do it again. Sony, you're supposed to have the best autofocus in the business. And what are you doing? Here we are on the stream, going soft on me. Anyway, accenting the triad notes. So we might go, oh, difficult. Let's go again. Challenging. That's fun, because that challenged our ability to play dynamically on command. What about if we were to challenge things like our bending accuracy? Well, what if we were to play this, where we played every string as it was, but we hit the top note on each string, instead of fretting it, we hit it by bending it, like this. Absolutely failed that one. Let's try it again. What a time to play a guitar with an unfamiliar string gauge. Let's try that again, right? One more time. We go. better, getting there. It's a physical challenge. Now, the reason I bring this up is to show you that there are many ways that you can challenge your physicality on the instrument. There are many ways that you can challenge your physical technique, and it is not just about becoming faster or playing more and more complex patterns. There are lots of things you can do here. It could be a muting challenge. It could be a tone production challenge. Anything to do with the physical connection with the instrument counts towards servicing your pillar number one, which is physical technique. Hands. What about head? Well, here's an interesting one, right? All that stuff that we just played, did that or did that not service our knowledge, our ability to visualize the fretboard? Well, the G major scale probably didn't. But did playing it in fourths service our visualization? Yes. Did accenting triads service our visualization? Yes, because we had to visualize a triad layered on top of a scale. Did doing things like the bending thing, did that service our visualization? Yes, we had to visualize imagined notes as we're bending. We had to visualize our target pitches. You can actually do quite a lot of these things with a single exercise. That's where I'm getting at with this, right? With a single exercise, you can service many of these parts of your guitar playing. And this is part of, if you've seen our episode on evidence-based goal setting, put my teeth back in, evidence-based goal setting. This is kind of part of what we talk about here. We talk about goals, good goals having equifinality and multifinality, which basically means that a single activity can service many upstream goals, but can also service many downstream goals. Go check that episode out, by the way. It's a lot of fun. I do this with my students. I'll be doing it again in September. We'll have a new crop of students. We'll be doing some goal-setting activities. And it actually works, this stuff. They actually stick with it. It's good fun. So we can essentially be looking to service our ability to visualize the fretboard simply by playing things that require us to concentrate on visualizing the fretboard. And similarly, our musicality, our heart, can also be challenged with many of these same exercises. How might we do that? Well, we could simply take a single exercise and we could focus our attention on making that exercise sound as beautiful as we possibly can. So if we take this fourths thing, for example, or some fours thing rather, this business. I may play that exercise with a view to improving the sound of each individual note and playing around with things like pick placement, pick depth, and the amount of force I apply, the amount of chirp we put on the string, the position on the string, how hard I'm holding the notes, etc., purely with a view to improving the way the notes sound. So instead of playing this and just worrying about my fingers, going to the right spots, I might focus my attention on the beauty of what it is that I'm playing, because this is still a musical device. It's not something that is absent of music. Once again, camera focus is annoying me. Should have manually focused this before we rolled, but hey, we're here now. So anyway, yes, I might play something like this. Where I'm working on getting just the right amount of harmonic in each note to make it sound aggressive and bright. Especially with this kind of plexi tone that we're playing through, which can be a little mucky. Is this challenging my physical technique? Yes. Is it challenging my musicianship and my heart? Yes. This is a really great bang for buck exercise for this reason. might I also do with this? I might play with my dynamics, and I might see if I can make some notes sound pretty and small, and I might see if I can make other notes sound big and bold. I'm sure you get the gist. These exercises, such as they are, this is just one random exercise, an exercise absolutely plucked from thin air. It is a random exercise that I have chosen. It's not a specific exercise. It's not to say this exercise is the right exercise or the wrong exercise or whatever. All this is just a choice of exercise that will permit you to address the three big elements of your guitar playing in a single exercise. Now, you don't need to do all this stuff within a single exercise for it to count. It's very important. You are allowed multiple exercises. But this is to show you that if you're playing and within your practice, you're addressing your understanding, your physical technique, and your heart, let's say your musicianship, all this sort of business, I think your practice counts. Now, on to tip number 2. So that's tip number 1, which is to make sure that you are addressing the big rocks, addressing the big pillars of your guitar playing. Before we go any further though, let me just take a quick second and let me remind you about Sam Bell. There we go. Sam Bell's guided practice session. So we're going to go back to this, right? This is licklibrary.com, of course, today's sponsors, let's not forget. I'm going to show you this, right, in case anybody's missed it. So this is, let's just go to, where is my Chrome tab? Here is my Chrome tab, share, there we go. Let's go to this guy. I want to make myself slightly larger. There's a picture of me, and then another picture of me, and then there's me looking at a picture of me. It's all very meta. Here is Sam Bell's 30-minute practice routine sequences. This is a great example of something that will challenge your musicianship by teaching you how to play cool sequences. It will challenge your fretboard knowledge by challenging you to visualize these sequences in real time, and will challenge your physical technique because it can be quite hard. Which leads me to my next thing. If you want to do 30 minutes of practice guided by one of the best to do it, folks, Sam Bell's 30-minute guided practice routine sequences, it's for you. It's a good one. It's a really good one. That's our sponsor course for the day. Check out the link down below. It's not available for free, but Lick Library members, you will get it as part of your membership, right? So it's included for Lick Library members. Unfortunately, we can't make this free for everyone, but it is definitely, definitely worth taking a look at. Now, on to tip number 2. That was tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to ensure that your practice is difficult enough, but not too difficult. What on earth do I mean by this? Well, difficult enough. We're going to go back to an exercise example here, right? An exercise example. So let's say for a moment that you, dear friend, were to come to me and go, Nick, I want to get in better shape. First, I would say to you, you may be better off asking somebody else. But you go, no, you're the exercise person that I know. So, and I know you like to lift weights. I want to get into lifting weights. Now, we are going to use the example of the barbell back squat. In case anybody doesn't know what this is, it's where you take a loaded barbell, which is a big long rod, a loaded barbell, you place weights on either side of it, and then what happens is you grab the weight on your back, you squat down into a deep squatting position, so your legs look a bit like this, and then you stand all the way back up. That's how that works, right? The bar is on your back, squat down, stand up. This is why we call it a back squat. Squat, down there, back, where the bar goes. Now, I am certain that for most of you or all of you, there is an amount of weight that we can put on the bar that will most definitely be too much, right? I want you to imagine this for a second. Let's say it's your first time doing this, you come to the gym, and I, a well-meaning but misguided powerlifter, say to you, okay, well, I mean, a 300 kilo squat's pretty impressive. Let's put 300 kilos on the bar. You take 300 kilos, if you are strong enough to even get it off the pins, it will probably staple you, right? And you probably won't get back up. We'll have to peel you out from under the bar unless you're very strong. in which case, congratulations, you're very strong, which is cool, right? But, you know, I like that sort of thing. Anyway, this is an example of something that is too hard. It's too hard because you cannot do it. You cannot do it, therefore you can receive no benefit from the exercise because it is too hard for you to actually do. The same is true if we said, okay, we're going to do an exercise that is extremely skill dependent and you just physically can't do it, not because you lack the strength or you lack the conditioning, but you just lack the skill, for example, right? An example of this might be some of the Olympic variations where you just don't have the skill, or a handstand walk or something like this. You go, I can't do that. These are examples of things that for most folks are too hard right now to be beneficial. However, if we took the same thing with the barbell back squat and I said to you, here is the morning paper, right? The morning newspaper. I've read it. I've checked my horoscope. Same as it was last week. But what's going on for Gemini? Anyway, so give me the morning paper. Just hold this on your back. Squat down, stand up, and you go, okay, cool. What now, coach? Go home. You're done. That's an example of something that for most folks is too easy. We're not likely to become fitter or stronger by doing this. It is too easy. We can recognize that for exercise to be effective, it needs to be somewhere between those two extremes of too easy to be beneficial and too hard to complete, or certainly too hard to be beneficial. And as it is with exercise, so it goes with practice. Your practice, for it to be effective, needs to be difficult enough to be challenging, but not so difficult that it is impossible for you to complete. Let me show you an example. Right, an example of this. We're going back to our drum loop and we're going to be playing those fours. This time we're going to focus purely on our physical technique. In case you're wondering what those are, we're back on our G major scale and we're playing 4 notes. Four notes ascending, and that's it. 4 notes at a time. Play 4 notes, start 1 note higher up, and play 4 again. I'd like you to play along with me, and I'd like you to make a note of some speeds. I'll shout them out as we go. The speed, first one we're going to take a look at, is the speed at which things completely fall apart. You just can't play it at all, right? I'd also like you to make a note of the fastest speed that you're able to just about keep up. So just about keep up and then can't play it at all. Those are the two numbers we're looking for. We're going to begin with 80. This is 80 BPM. We're playing 8 notes and let's see where we end up with this. We're going to go. I should point out that if this is still too fast, there is no shame in that. Everyone has a starting point, but we had to pick somewhere, so we picked 80. Are you able to at least play some of that? There's 80. Make a note of the tempo where you start to come apart at the seams. Here's 90. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 90. Hopefully you're still with us. Let us know if you are. Here is 100. 8th notes. Are you still with us? I'd imagine so. Let's keep going. Here's 110. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for some of you, this is going to start feeling a bit like work. If that's starting to feel a little challenging, good. Make a mental note of it. We're going to 120. Here we go. Has anyone fallen off the log yet? Don't worry if you have. Perfectly understandable if you have. Here is 130. Ready? Here we go. All 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyone come apart yet? Don't worry if you have, that's okay. Make a note of the tempo where you can no longer keep up at all, but also the tempo where you can just about keep up. Here's 140, here we go. Hopefully we're still feeling good. We're going back to 80, but we're playing 16th notes this time. So you can consider this to be 160. I got distracted. I'm not counting that. Some folks get messy, that's absolutely fine. Some folks are out, that's okay. Let's go up to 16th notes at 100. This is the equivalent to, well, we've gone a bit too far there. Let's go to 90. This is 180. Ready? A 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Feeling good? Hopefully. Let's get up to 100. Here we go. We're gonna go. Let's keep pushing. Let's push a bit more rapidly. Let's go to 120. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Aha! Getting a bit scrappy for me. You may be a little better at this than I am, but let's find out. Here's 1, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty good if I concentrate. I can stay on top of that. Let's go to 150. Getting really quick now. Is anybody still with us? Let me know if you're still with us. That's quite impressive if you are. Here we go. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, hard. That's getting tough. Let's go again. Okay, see that kind of speed there? This kind of 150 sort of tempo, that for me is getting past the point where it is an appropriate difficulty. Now the reason that I wanted to bring this up, I wanted to take you on this scale, is to show you what appropriate difficulty feels like. Because the appropriate difficulty for you is the difficulty which is immediately before you start coming apart. Immediately before you started coming apart. We've got folks saying it's not the picking, but the pattern. That's 100% can be the case. For me, it's the picking. Were I to do this legato, it would be like falling off a log, but I practiced loads that. We've got some folks that kept all the way up to 130. That's impressive. So for me, because it was starting to get a little bit scrappy-do at 150, I would probably practice this around the 135, 140 mark. Now, this is a tempo where this is difficult, and I have to concentrate for it to be, let's say, for it to be. I have to concentrate to pull it off. I'm reading the comments at the same time, by the way. There's some very good comments coming in. So I have to concentrate to carry this off, right? But, and it's really weird because it's a pattern that I played loads, but I used to practice this when I was a non-picker. I was the legato only guy, so I used to practice all the time with the old legato. And away it went. Quite happy with that. So picking is a different thing. So the reason I would choose that 140, 135 kind of range is it's difficult enough that it represents a challenge. It represents a skill learning opportunity for me. Now, we've talked about this before. We've talked about these moments where you're playing where things start to feel very difficult. And they start to feel, you start to get what I call the oh shit moment. We can swear, we're this far enough in the stream, we're allowed. YouTube won't demonetize us, hopefully. So yeah, the oh shit moment is what happens when you get that little feeling of that should have worked but didn't. That's what we're talking about. Now, if you have a handful of those every time you're playing something, that tells us that your body is developing skill. It's learning something. If something is too hard, it will be all oh shit moment. And it won't really be oh shit moment, it'll just be, nope, can't do that. Whereas, if we have these moments of, this is challenging, but I can just about carry it off, we can discern that we're at an intensity, we are at a difficulty that is appropriate for practice. So, that is point number 2. Now, how you scale this in terms of fretboard visualization, in terms of musicianship, I'm certain you can imagine, right? But that is point 2. That is point number 2. So, I would argue that point number 2, we've got a great point coming in from Nick Jennison with this, right? Where he's saying he never used to push it past 180. That was fast enough for 99% of what he did, and it saved him pushing his hands too far. That's an interesting concept, this idea of pushing the hands too far. I think that's a bigger topic, which is fatigue, stress, and tissue management. But we'll maybe get to that, right? It's a very important topic. That's perhaps a conversation for another stream, but a very valuable one. So that's a question of what is too much intensity, what is too hard. I think that is variable, and I don't think there's necessarily a hard cutoff point for that. I think it depends per person. Knowing what I know about strength and conditioning, and about the way the body adapts to stimulus. So I would probably argue that there is definitely merit to that, but I think it's very nuanced. I'd hate for anybody reading this, and I know Nick would also hate for anybody reading this to go, 180 is enough. Any faster than 180, your hands will come off. That's absolutely not what's being said here, but I wanted to clarify that in case anybody is reading that, because you see this all the time, right? Timothy Appling's saying, how about the same exercise descending? Yeah, good choice. Great choice, right? But the point with this is to find an appropriate intensity. So that's point number 2. Point number 1, make sure you are servicing the big rocks. Point number 2 is to ensure it's hard enough, but not too hard. Point number 3, and we'll keep this quite brief because we've got some questions to answer. Point number 3 is to ensure your practice represents progression. What do I mean by this? It represents progression in terms of your ability to play things improving over a period of time. What is that period of time? This varies. The period of time varies, but let me present you with another example. So, you come with me to the gym and you decide you're going to get stronger, and we get you barbell back squatting, and you're already quite strong to begin with, so you find yourself doing the barbell back squat with 100 kilos for sets of 5 repetitions. That's 5 ups and downs with 100 kilos. It's really good, right? That's really freaking good. For our American friends, that is 220 freedom units, or pounds, as they're known. 220 eagle flag units. I'm jest. But yeah, 220 of those, or 100 kilos, right? And I say to you, that's fantastic, right? You keep this up, you'll be really strong in 6 months' time. It's going to be amazing. Well done, you. I come back and visit you 6 months later, and you're still squatting 100 kilos. And you're saying to me, Nick, how come I haven't gotten any stronger? Well, because you've just done the same thing over and over again, and it's not gotten any harder, and you haven't necessarily responded to your own improvements in fitness or strength or any of that sort of business. You go, well, what gives, right? What's going on here? So the point with this is that in order to become stronger, we have to lift progressively heavier loads. And in order for us to become more skilled as guitar players, we have to play progressively more challenging things. What this doesn't mean is that we completely change the things that we're playing week to week. It means we look to progress the things that we're working on. So if we had that exercise that we're playing and we're going, oh, this is good, right? I can play this at 120 beats per minute. Your objective should be to get that exercise up to 130 beats per minute. And from there up to 140, and however far you feel is appropriate to push it. The time scale this happens on is the important part, though, because this time scale is not something that is measured session to session. It is measured in longer periods of time. We measure your progress as a guitar player not in days, not in hours, certainly not in weeks, certainly not in, certainly not in minutes, right? We don't measure our practice in the short terms, we measure it in months, and we measure it in years. So with this, you should be aiming to progress the things that you're playing by moving on to more difficult things, or things that are objectively more difficult. But you should do this at a pace that you are able to do. And you should accept that this pace is going to vary and it won't always be linear. But your practice should represent some kind of progress. You should be progressing at a rate that is appropriate for you. Here is the nutshell with this, right? How do you know? How do you know if something is progressing at an appropriate rate, right? Well, going back to the strength example. Here is the strength example once again. Apologies if anybody's bored rigid by these strength examples, but this is a good example, right? So I would suggest, well, I'm going to use this example. So we get you into the gym. We have you loading 100 kilos or 220 pounds onto your back for a barbell back squat. You do 5 repetitions. Pretty smooth. You rest 3 minutes, you do it again. Easy. You rest 3 minutes, you do it again. The last one's a little hard, but you're pretty good. Then you go home. Everything is good. You come back the following week and you load 120 kilos onto the bar and you manage 3 repetitions before you get stabled. Did you get stronger? Question, genuine question. Did you get stronger? We don't know. We've no way of telling. How do we not know? Because you did something that's harder, but it was also harder. If, by contrast, you put 120 kilos in the bar, you did the same workout that you did with 100, but now it's 120, I think that's like 275 for American friends. It's a big jump. Don't make those jumps in the gym, but you get the gist, right? And it's the same level of hard. This is the important bit. The same level of hard, then you got stronger. And so it goes with practice. When you practice, you should be progressing to things that are more demanding from an objective point of view, but from a subjective perspective, it should feel about the same level of hard. It should feel the same level of difficult. If all you're doing is ramping up your practice difficulty and you're trying harder and having to miss notes and scuff your timing and stuff, you haven't actually progressed. If, however, you're able to take an exercise and play it faster, more fluidly, whatever, for the same subjective level of difficulty, that represents progression. So when you practice, it should always feel about the same level of hard. It should feel like you need a degree of concentration. It should feel like you need to be focused, but you're not really missing stuff. You get the occasional, whoop, oh shit moment, but that's kind of as far as it goes. If you are able to maintain that level of subjective difficulty, but over time progress that in terms of speed, in terms of difficulty, etc., etc., etc. Again, the rate of that is, Nick's in with a comment, it read my mind. This progress is never linear for a number of physiological and psychological reasons. 100%, right? Top tempos can be static for a couple of weeks, one day you'll fly. 100%, this is absolutely true. This is absolutely true, right? But the point with this is if we zoom out to a view of your progress in months, years, then we should see a trend. We'll go with this, right? So your actual performance can vary like this week to week, but if it trends like this, and if you were to zoom out, it would look like this, give or take, that represents progress. So that's point number 3, is to make sure your practice represents progression. Here are those 3 points again, then we'll answer some questions. The points are as follows. Rule number 1, ensure that your practice addresses the 3 pillars of your guitar playing, which are, as Steve Vai puts it, your hands, your head, your heart, which we can translate as your physical capacity on the instrument, your technique and physiology, my friend Nick has put it, your ability to, your understanding, your fretboard visualization, your knowledge of the instrument, your understanding of music theory, that's pillar number 2, your musicianship, your vocabulary, your repertoire, your time, your expression, all this good musical stuff. Address those 3 things, your practice counts. Tip number 2 is to ensure that your practice is hard enough to represent a stimulus, but not so hard as to be impossible. And tip number 3 is to ensure that your practice represents progression by pursuing the same exercises week on week and aiming to progress them, but only if you are able to. Only if you're able to. If you want some more help with this, I have a course which is the Ultimate Speed Builder. And this goes into this stuff from the perspective of sports science, which you can then extrapolate out into other things. It's available on licklibrary.com. If you want something that you can just play, go check out Sam's course, right? This is Sam Bell's 30-minute practice routine sequences. It's great. Go get that. It's available for Lick Library members. We're going to answer some questions because I'm sure you have them. I've removed myself. I meant to remove this one. That's better. Nope. Here's me. Sam just wants to be on the screen. I don't blame him, right? Fabulous guitar player. Lovely guy. I want him on the screen too. So that's kind of where we're going with this. Folks, I've enjoyed doing that. I've enjoyed talking about this stuff. We're going to answer some questions, right? So let's begin with this one. A lovely question and a lovely compliment from our friend Brian D'Annunzio. Says, Nick, I like your phrasing. Are there certain intervals you favor more than others? Well, that's a very kind compliment. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I'm going to put a bit of a spin on this and say that there are, but it depends on what I'm playing. So a few ways we can think about this. The first thing that I like to think of is, in my mind, I always kind of categorize intervals as being stable or unstable, being essentially evoking feelings of movement or evoking feelings of stability in what you're playing. And the easiest way to think about this is to think about the root note being the most stable of intervals, and then other notes being unstable intervals. And I try and reserve the root note for times, or certainly reserve landing on the root note for times when I want to make things feel stable. The end of sequences, for example. If I'm playing a solo, I've got a little passage. At the end of the passage, I may land on the root note to make it feel like it's resolved. If I'm going somewhere else, I may land on the root note for a while and then just nudge it off in a slightly different direction. Let me give you a quick example with this. So it's not about specific intervals, but it's about understanding how particular intervals feel in relation to what it is that you're playing. I'm going to stick with the plexi sound because I'm kind of enjoying it, but I may throw some I'll throw some lead source on there because who doesn't love a bit of reverb and delay? We'll play this in the key of E minor just to show you what I'm talking about, because it's easy for us to see where the root notes are. They're all the E's. We can think about this as G major, actually. Stable. Stable. Notice I didn't land on that right away on the change. Stable. There's my root note. Grip the neck a bit hard there. There's some stable. Avoiding the root note. There's our root note. Made us wait all that time for it. And that is, I'm not saying that's the way I think about phrasing in a nutshell, but certainly that's one way of thinking about intervals. Now, another thing we can think about with this is we can consider our intervals to, we can consider the intervals in terms of how dense the tonality is. So in terms of density, we can think about a single note as being the least dense thing we can play. It's just a note, right? If all you have is one note, cool, play the note. If we start to think about in terms of triads, for example, that's a less dense structure because we only have 3 notes. When we start to move to pentatonic scales, it's 5 notes. Diatonic scales, it's 7 notes. Chromatic scales, it's 12. You get the idea. So the more densely packed our clusters of notes we're choosing from are, the more dense, or the more also the less bold and clear our statements sound. That can be a good thing. I'll probably do a stream on this at some point because it's a very interesting point. We like that an awful lot. So here is a great question from Sam Junior Music. Nick, who do you consider an actual master guitarist? There's loads of them, tons of them out there, right? And this is a beautiful thing about it, right? The guitar is slowly maturing into an instrument where mastery is becoming more of a rule than an exception. So we have this with, let's say, let's take other instruments, right? With other instruments, you don't find this kind of like delineation between jobbers and masters. Yes, there are masters in other instruments, but when you take something like the saxophone, for example, I have a saxophonist next door. It's assumed that you can play. And nobody's really interested in your mastery. They're interested in what it is that you have to say with the instrument. And that's kind of where the guitar's headed. And I like this, right? I'm happy about this. The arms race is ending because everyone's getting hot. For me, unquestionably, when it comes to the electric guitar in its modern form, the master is Guthrie Govan. I don't think he's been bettered in terms of just capacity to play amazing things on a whim, speak the language of music like it's his mother tongue, express beautifully and have incredible technical facility. It's bonkers, man. Other examples of masters, I mean, geez, there are so many. I consider Andy Timmons to be a master. Steve Vai, a master. Absolutely. Jeff Beck, who's a master, God rest him. But like, there are so many. Like, I'm saying these names, but there are countless that you would go, well, what about Hendrix? You know, absolutely, right? Absolutely. Were the things Hendrix played, were they, you know, by today's standards, the most mind-bending things? Probably not, but, you know, geez, I mean, he invented them. He invented the modern vocabulary of electric guitar. This is kind of where I'm going with this, but I think it's a really good question. I think if we had to pick one, it would be Guthrie for me. I feel like Matteo Mancuso is on the road to this level of mastery. Somebody who doesn't get spoke about enough and will certainly climb the mountain of mastery one day is Max Ostro. Does not get spoken about enough. Max is, what a player. Holy cow. But there's lots of these players out there. I guess for me, if I had to categorize this, and this is where I draw the line, you'll notice that there are certain players that I haven't included in here who are technical virtuosi. They're able to play very challenging things. I guess for me, and this is my personal opinion, the ability to speak music without having to rehearse it beforehand is a key component of mastery. It has to flow out of you and not just be some trick that you've rehearsed over and over and over again. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there are, we kind of live in a bit of an, I'm going to rant for a second. We live in an age where a lot of players are rehearsing like these little 30-second sound bites to the point where they're immaculate and then presenting them on social media, and it's cool and people are playing really great stuff. But if you ask these players to speak music to that caliber on the spot, they wouldn't be able to. And that for me is mastery. And I think that's where Guthrie and guys like Andy, that's where they really shine. I think, but I'm not the guy to ask about this. Certainly don't put myself in that category, that's for sure. Anyway, but I'm working on it. I'll get there one day. Mal Riley says, I noticed that you aren't using tremolo bars or Floyd Rose tremolos. Do you not like to use them for some reason? I forget to use them. When I have a guitar with a trem on them, I love it, but I always forget it's there. So I just don't bother. And the majority of my guitars just ended up being hardtails for a variety of reasons. Another thing with this is hardtails, they're just a touch more reliable when it comes to performing at the level where I'm at, where I don't have a road case full of 20 guitars and a tech to bring them on and off stage for me. But also I'm playing gigs where it's consequential, where I'm being paid, if not handsomely, then at least reasonably to perform often other people's music. and often I'm hired for the occasion. I can't be going, sorry guys, my guitar's gone out of tune, stop the song. You guys just vamp on the drum loop for a second, I need to get another guitar. I need guitars that are reliable. Hardtails, that's it, that's kind of the thing. Truthfully though, I mean, I love playing guitars with trems. I really enjoy it. I just forget. And you know, geez, I'm playing PRS, right? These are the best non-Floyd trems in the world, in my opinion. And do I have guitars with them on? Yes. Do I use them? I forget. So that's it. It's nothing personal with trems. I just forget. I forget. Folks, we've run out of time again. We have one more stream on this topic. One more stream on the topic of practice. And we're going to get to that next week. And then we'll return the following month with a whole new series of subjects. Folks, my name's Nick Jennison for Lick Library, for Guitar Interactive Magazine. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to see you guys next week. Don't forget, subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be watching on. Give us a thumbs up on your way out the door. We will see you next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's our last discussion on practice for a little while. Then we're on to something else. Don't forget to go check out Sam Bell's 30-minute practice routine. I'm going to play out on this plexi sound for a while on this track because it's a lot of fun. What I'm going to do, folks, just so you know, I'll see if you can see this, right? I'm going to remove the branding for a second, and I want you to tell me in the comments, right? Watch these numbers. I'm going to show you what's here, right? This one, nearest the end, is the Marshall. That's the modern Victory Sheriff. That's the discontinued Victory Sheriff. Marshall, modern Sheriff, the 25-watt version, old Sheriff. I'm going to play through these. You tell me which one you prefer. My name's Nick Jennison. This has been the Monday Guitar Show. I will see you guys. Can we still see it with the branding on? We can see it with the branding on. That's what we want to see. Marshall, Sheriff, other Sheriff. That's the 1 and 6. I'll see you guys next week. Let's have the main branding. Here we go. I'm off to play with the amps some more. I can't make my mind up. I'll see you guys next week.